Hey folks, everything new when it's done. This is an update on my off-grid home setup configuration, and I'm going to talk about why active balancing is needed. So Will Prouse has a video or two coming out and saying, you know what, you don't need active cell balancing, you don't need cell balancing. If you have new cells, you shouldn't need it at all. He does have the caveat of saying, except where there's significant high demand with the batteries, but for solar charge rates and low C charge rates, you shouldn't need it. Well, this system has been going for a couple of years now, steady, straight. This is a battery pack I installed. It is a 16S configuration, 304 amp hour lithium iron phosphate. Let me see if I can get that to show there. There's the specs of that one, 304 amp hours, 3.2 volts each. And this is all powering these two EG4 3 kilowatt units. So I've got these in 120/240 split configuration. Works flawlessly. No complaints about these signature solar units at all. They work great. I have a master and a slave. This happens to be the slave. And it's running just good. Now, the problem I ran into is that I started having shutdowns of my solar, and I thought it was the breakers. For a sec there, I was losing some breakers. So I put in. I thought it was a bad breaker. I installed a better quality breaker. This Tocas 200 amp breaker. I had a random Chinese one there, which is a 250 amp, but it was popping well before 200 amps. That's for sure. I measured the load, and I was only pulling about 75 amps max load, even if you consider surge. But it was still shutting down even when the breaker wasn't flipping. So I've narrowed it down to something wrong with the cells. Maybe my cells weren't balanced. And sure enough, what you can see here is there is a significant difference between max voltage and min voltage. And this was even greater when I started. I was seeing max voltages of 3.7 volts on a cell, and with minimum voltage of 3.34 there, so significant spread in the voltage. And if one of those cells drops below, 2.2 or something like that, whatever the voltage is, even though the rest of the cells are at a decent voltage, the BMS will shut down the battery pack trying to save that particular cell. So I think that the BMS was actually shutting it down. Now, you can't see it, but this is, let me get a flashlight here. This is a Daly 250 amp BMS. There, you can see it there, it's upside down, a little dusty. Okay, 48 volt, 16S 48 volt, LIFEPO4. There you go. And this works well, but it only has passive balancing. And the issue with that is the passive balancing only will balance, with millivolts. And as you can see, again, the min-max there, 3.5 to 3.3, that's way off. People running balancers, are within a thousandths of a volt off there. Certainly not that. So there's a couple of things. You can see a 3.5. It was showing 3.7 on charge. While the lowest, the number one cell, it's always the lowest for some reason. And these need to be a lot closer, because if you run the power down, if you have high load, the voltage of the one cell is going to go down further, going to be going down further than maybe the higher cell, and that's going to cause the whole battery pack to shut off because the BMS is trying to protect it. So you want these all the same voltage, so they're going to trigger a shut off at the same time, or ideally not shut off at all. So this is the case for me for active cell balancing. What I have purchased is a Daly 5 amp active cell balancing add-on, which will complement the Daly BMS, which again they don't have active balancing on their BMSs, but they sell that active balancer. So why I was getting here is because And this only happened after I put my hot water heater on the 240 volt side of my 3 kilowatt inverters. And when that comes on, it's spiking up to 4,000 watts. And with surge, maybe 5,000-6,000 with the surge there. And that was causing it to shut down. And it got worse as time went on. And it got worse, I think, because these cells got further and further out of balance. So I intend to get that balancer, put it on here. I'll do a follow-up video, but I think this is a large part of my shutdown issue, where the whole house would shut down. Now the inverters would, the EG4 inverters are pretty good. They will turn back on once the battery comes back up, once the BMS resets. So that's good. And the whole house would go dark until they reset, and it took about 30 seconds. But obviously I don't want that happening, where all the lights go off in the house for 30 seconds. So I have to solve this with active balancing. So let me know in the comments what you think. This is the first thing I'm going to tackle to see if this solves it. Right now it's just sitting in charge mode. I'm not using the batteries for actively powering the house. It's more like a UPS mode right now. And that's the purpose of that, is to stop the high loads, to give those cells a time to passively balance. And I think they are slowly passively balancing, but it would need days and days with the size of these cells. Maybe a couple of weeks, a month to actually passively balance themselves. So I will leave it here for the first video, and then I'll follow up once I get the Daly 5 amp active balancer, and I'll give you a video. I'll put up a video about how it's actually actively balancing, and you'll be able to see now and then later with the active balancer how different this is. So again, here is the max min voltage, significantly out in terms of a voltage spread, and even more so when you put heavy load on the system. So thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. I'll send you an update as soon as I get that active balancer.